this episode of the Weird Obscure World podcast.
Just a couple of stars, wearing skin suits, traveling through space and time. Being hurtled, actually.
On a rock.
On a rock. To the show. Welcome to the couch.
Yes.
We have a great show. It is a dive headfirst into journalism at its absolute worst.
Yeah.
The absolute worst of the worst. And damn you journalists
Chasing
for giving us so much material to work with. Garbage.
Yeah, journalists should never go out and make news. They should go out and report news. But it seems like sometimes they try to make it.
Yeah.
But let's start out with some news.
Let's start out with some fun news.
I'll go first.
Okay.
All right. So apparently, cocaine is a popular drug in London. Londoners are taking so much cocaine that the Class A drug can be found in the River Thames.
Oh, they're peeing it out.
And it's making the eels hyperactive. so now you've got to have...
You just want to swim there in the mornings.
I know I'm down today. I can't seem to formulate a sentence. How come I can't seem to pick up on chicks? I'll go swim in the Thames.
So, how do they know that the eels are overactive? They have previous activities of the eels, or are they like freaking out?
Well, very good question. The King's College in London, who's the study is reporting this to, usually you can find those eels close to the estuary. I know kind of what an estuary is. I know nothing about the estuary in the Thames. This is one I wish we were doing on site because,
we could go for a dip. A little skinny dip in the Thames.
Or just turn the snorkel upside down. But, okay, so they're usually found close to the estuary, and they travel as far as Greenwich, another place. I don't know how far that is. But the Class A drug can be found in the water, affects their behavior, and makes them more erratic. Now, granted, these are eels. These are evolution's halfway point between worms and snakes, I believe.
Satanic evolution.
I may be wrong.
Listen, I think we should first visit said water things, then do all the research.
Yes.
Do all the research, because we'll be ready to go.
Come. Say hello to my little friend as I'm standing in the Thames all coat-faced. But anyway, so London, you guys are carrying it strong. I don't know if cocaine, where it ties into how people are feeling, but I imagine the nightclub scene there is pretty good.
So here's what I don't understand. They didn't know before the eels freaked out that they had a big coke problem?
Like
it took the eels freaking out for them to realize, we may have a drug problem. Well, not all the people haven't slept for 40 days.
There were 432 deaths related to cocaine or in England and Wales in 2017. And it was 371 in 16. But it was only about 12 in 2011. So
it's gaining speed.
Yeah, so I imagine they just never tied it together. And this may just be like a study done. Like they may have been working on the cocaine cocademic on the
cocademic? That's a new word.
But when the King's College, probably eelologist, was out there.
An illologist.
Hey, we got ufologists.
We got ufologists.
Yeah.
I'm going to become a ufologist this year.
Oh, yeah.
Not an illologist. They're creepy creatures.
Well, we have to write a paper, so...
Well, we have to have new findings.
Oh, new findings.
Yeah.
All right.
We'll just make that shit up. Everyone else.
Well, mine's going to be shaped like a star.
So, like an actual star?
Yeah.
Like a circle? Like a nebula?
No. Like
a pentagram.
Yeah.
Yours is going to be satanic.
Except it's going to... Well, it depends on which way you're standing as it comes to kidnap you. And, remember, Kegels, people. Men can benefit from Kegels, too.
Kegels.
You never know when that...
you don't want to give him a bad impression.
Anyhow. So the eelologists were probably studying eels, and he's used to watching them do eel things, and next thing you know, the eels are acting like Wall Street bankers.
Oh.
You know, buying and selling other stuff and speculating, and then obviously it's cocaine. So
obviously,
so that's my story. I just thought it was funny.
It's absurd.
Well,
the poor eels. You cocaine addicts don't know what you've done. These eels are never going to be the same. Now they're going to try and clean that up, and then they're all going to be jonesing for their coke.
The eels are out searching for their new hit.
It's a horrible thing you've done.
Drop them off by Wall Street. They'll be okay.
Good hell. That's a good story.
Yeah, I thought it was funny.
Mine is also about sea life. A little different. So it stems from, these frat guys or drunk teenagers thinking, I'm going to swallow that goldfish whole. So they get drunk and they, reach in and root around inside the little goldfish tank and swallow the poor goldfish as a dare or whatever. Well, this Yahoo, McShittery Shitterson.
Doesn't he belong to the fraternity Kappa Omega Kappa?
Something to that effect. He swallows a live yet venomous spiny catfish, So
he doesn't swallow a goldfish, he
No.
swallows a cat. How big are those catfish?
Well, this one was pretty small, about the size of a goldfish, and they actually do look like a goldfish. However, evolutionary has taken over, and they have developed these spines that stick to and stick into anything that touches them. And, I mean... Is
it like their fin spines? Because I know catfish have those fin spines.
The entire fish is covered, tip to tail, in these spines.
All over.
Yeah. So...
How far did it make it? How far was its travel?
So this...
Throat?
No. It got caught on his adenoids. In his adenoids.
The adenoids are those things right there next
to the tonsils. And not only did it get caught on one side, it got caught on both sides, cutting off his airway.
Did he die?
No. He made it to the emergency room. And... if you're going to swallow a fish, don't swallow one that fights back.
Yeah.
Just as a general rule.
Probably a good idea to get the fish from Walmart because that's where they have certified goldfish.
And you can see in both his x-rays and the actual pictures of his tracheal tube and his adenoids, the fish is lodged there.
That's not the very small fish either. That's...
Well, yeah, it's about the size of his throat.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah. So, shows up at the medical center at Rotterdam's University Medical Center.
Are we in England again?
Yeah.
Oh, England. Do you have to replace Florida?
Maybe he did too much coke that morning.
Do you have to replace Florida so soon?
You might. At any rate, these fish have evolved to fight back. Given their spiny nature, this fish was not going down without a fight. It had to be removed, along with this poor guy's adenoids that were completely destroyed by this jackass-esque type of...
He's probably lucky it got caught there and not further down, though.
Oh, let me tell you.
Because I imagine after he was done passing that, he'd have to wipe with a Band-Aid.
Well, and not only that, but no animals will even eat these fish. Even your dumb pelican's yeah, no.
Yeah.
That sucker will get caught in my throat.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's mine. One guy holding a live
Omicron Kappa.
a live catfish in the back of his throat. Yeah. He was distressed and agonized as he showed up at the hospital, as you can imagine.
Imagine that.
Yeah, and probably a little confused because he was pretty drunk.
But were his buddies in there with him laughing?
Well, yeah, there was 3 of them that showed up to the hospital. They're
all crying.
One of them was holding the goldfish tank, thinking they would put it back. Just waiting for the return of the goldfish. Unfortunately, the goldfish, there was a killing in this.
It was doomed either way.
Yeah, no way around it. Poor goldfish. Dumb humans.
Yeah. Okay, so today we're going to continue carrying on with kind of surrounding the satanic panic. Now, by any measure, we're not the last word on the cause or the reasons for the satanic panic. This is just kind of us.
Just commentating.
Yeah, guessing and shooting off the hip as to what
Thoughts from the couch.
Yeah, what we've noticed about it. And
unfortunately, we've had the unfortunate ability and opportunity to research this.
To deep dive into, I found some,
And it goes so much deeper than even the McMartin preschool case. It
gets worse.
prolific.
McMartin was bad, but there are other stories that are worse. But I want to take us back to 1969, right off the start.
This is before the McMartin case.
Before McMartin, this is around the same time as the Manson family did their stuff.
That stuff.
Heinous stuff. So in 1969, a radio show gets a call from a guy named Tom. The radio show's in Eastern Michigan University. So it's one of those university shows, they play some reggae at 3 and punk rock at 6, one of those.
Mm-hmm. The DJs is supremely qualified.
Yeah, it all sounds like NPR, like it's some pedophile whispering in your ear or something. I don't know. Anyways, so he calls up and Tom asks Gibb about the rumor that the Beatles' Paul McCartney had died and claimed that the Beatles song Revolution 9 contained a backwards masking message, confirming the rumor.
So which song?
Revolution 9.
Okay, I'm not familiar with that. And nor have I listened to it in reverse. I will today, though.
I probably won't listen to it in reverse unless I get me a turntable and I've got to go buy the...
No, I'll just do it on my little mixer. I'll just play it in reverse.
Okay, so we're going to listen to it in reverse. Anyway, so it says, turn me on, dead man, turn me on, dead man.
Okay, so turn me on, dead man, turn me on, dead man. What would that be in forward play? Namdeed? I don't know.
I haven't a clue.
Turn me on, dead man.
Have you ever seen Twin Peaks TV series?
No.
It was fantastic. And that was kind of how, you have to watch it, but there's a lot of people that talk in kind of backward masking form.
What?
Anyway, so, yeah.
There's an entire TV series about that?
No, just some of the parts of it.
Oh, good hell.
The show's really good.
So how did he get turn me on, dead man to mean that Paul McCartney was dead?
I don't know. That's been a conspiracy theory for a while that I've heard off and on that Paul McCartney died in a car wreck and he got replaced by another guy.
That sounded and looked exactly like him.
Yes.
That happened, yes.
And they're from England, so, coke and goldfish swallowing, Florida aside,
Perhaps he had done too much coke, swallowed a goldfish, and then started to sing, and whatever came out sounded like in reverse.
Have you ever listened to the backward masking?
Yeah, well,
I don't hear anything in there that they say is in there. I just don't hear it.
It is leading at best. They give you what they want you to think you heard, and if you listen to it enough times, you're like, eh.
Like that YouTube video with Weird Al Yankovic that's showing you the backward masking?
Yeah.
What's that?
Yeah.
Oh, man, that guy's got a fine mustache, though. But anyhow.
He does have a
fine mustache. So backwards masking kind of shows up on the scene then. And it goes along. So then we jump forward and...
so does it go beyond this totally well-known DJ? Obviously you're reading about it, so you must have told someone.
That's just that's like the first time backward masking appears.
Is kind of mentioned.
Appears in the mainstream psyche. And then...
That filthy animal didn't know what he started. We need to find him.
Tom?
Well,
this is in 69. So we obviously, at the very least, got to search retirement homes.
Yeah, and he won't remember. Oh.
And he's in Eastern Michigan, so he might be out ice fishing right about now.
Well, Tom.
Like grumpy old man.
What is Tom doing listening to music backwards anyway?
Maybe he's an amateur electrician. Wired up his...
It took over in reverse.
His player backwards, and it played backwards. I don't know. They say that, the first recording devices, when they did them backwards, but I found no evidence, not even any reporting of that. That's kind of just like an underground rumor or conspiracy theory. But this one is the first time I found, the first instance that I found when it was pinpointed and well known. And we know that from here on, it'll start ramping up, especially surrounding pop and rock music.
Heavy metal.
Well, and heavy metal. That's what
they called it. But they did not hear Screamo. Good hell. Had Screamo been around back then?
Well, I think music would have died.
It did die with Screamo.
But you know, it ramps up, and then you've got Tipper Gore's chasing down after Twisted Sister, and all these bands they just sound so mellow now. I mean, we listen to them on the old station, on
The
the oldies
Network, yeah.
and
Iron Maiden.
but they went after them, you know.
Motley Crue.
Judas Priest was actually taken to court and charged with kind of inciting a suicide.
What?
Yeah, it's just craziness. And then we jump ahead. Okay, so we're done with the backwards masking. They came after music, and there's more to cover there, but we want to kind of pinpoint in on what we think overall caused the satanic panic. And yes, the heavy metal music and the backlash of that played a big part of it. And then
Anton LaVey.
You
and your stupid Bible that, let me tell you, in some of the things I've read, he actually outright says, you really shouldn't take these writings seriously.
Yeah, he should have said I just copied Ayn Rand. But anyways, so in 1980, CNN begins.
Dun, dun, dun.
Now, I'm not saying CNN started the satanic panic, but what did start was a 24-hour news station that had to have stuff to cover 24 hours. And then in 82, Satellite News Channel starts. And then Headline News, which is it's still around, but it's a CNN-owned company. And then Fox in 96, MSNBC in 96. So they start competing. And when they first started, they were
like the original shock jocks.
Well, they were nonpartisan. But you've seen how they've kind of allocated to their own corners.
Oh, sure.
But that's in their competition has caused that. So you can see reverberations of this still, where they had to fill 24 hours and they had to keep you glued to them for 24 hours.
To win. It's all about winning, people.
Yeah.
It's not about actual news. No, it's about viewership.
Well, it's about money.
Yeah.
They've got to keep their doors open. To keep their doors open, they get more viewers, so to get more ad revenue and they do. They're a profitable business model. As we know, our father is glued to Fox News.
God bless him.
All day, every day that he's home. And it doesn't matter how lame the story is or how sensational or whether it matters. And if I can pass on one note to everybody right now sitting at home on whichever side of the fence you're on angry, thinking you're going to fix the world, first try. Just try this. Pick something small on your block.
Oh, how about in your house, people?
Well, yeah, in your house. But let's say your house is squared away, but pick something small on your block. The little old lady down the street, maybe she needs some help.
That's easy.
Yeah.
Then go bigger and...
Yeah, but don't try fixing the world. That's the thing. Don't get angry at something thousands of miles away and try fixing that. Because, one, you can't. You can't. They are bigger, they're stronger, they've got more money, they've got the influence. Let people who are already on their level go after that. But you can make a difference in your block, in your neighborhood.
Absolutely.
So go for that. If you feel the urge to fix something, by all means, fix it. Do service. Go out and preach your message. Try doing it close to you. One, you can stick around and watch the outcome of it. And two, if everyone fixed something on their block, imagine community we'd have.
Well, and people are watching you. If you are a Facebook pirate regurgitating shit you stole from local news stories and spewing it forth as if it is quote unquote gospel, which is also
shit we stole from London news stories today.
Yes, exactly like that. If you're regurgitating that, not for fun or just conversation from the couch, but to elicit more hate and more discontent, how about you close your computer, you shut your phone off, you step out front, and you find someone in your neighborhood that actually needs help, because you're not helping the agenda.
Go to your neighbor's house and shovel their sidewalk, or even just this simple thing. If you've got elderly in your neighborhood that may be alone, go have tea with them or finger food or something. Just do that once a week.
Just visit.
That'll change their lives.
Yeah.
It'll change your life. They have a history they can tell you about. I love listening to stories about before plumbing was around. And it's shocking, but I sit with my grandma, and she tells me about the outhouse that was behind her house when she was a kid. And it was a 3-holer. And her aunt would make her uncle go out there and warm the seat up for her in the winter.
That's brilliant.
And I love it. It's the best stories ever.
Yeah, I agree.
But anyway, so the news, we'll get back on track. So the news started competing, and out of this competition, you had a lot of stories happen. And also kind of videotaping VHS type machines became easy to attain, readily available.
The giant ones that you would put on your shoulder.
They were significantly huge. And the battery would last 7 minutes and weigh 32 pounds. And
the evangelist would have to keep his anger up while you changed the batteries.
Yeah. So that's where jump cuts originally started, was battery changing. Now with YouTube, it's a style. But anyway, so there's a lot of evangelical organizations that start making preachy kind of VHSs.
Propaganda.
That talk about where Satan is coming in. And so if you go to our website, wordobscureworld.com, we're going to have a list of these videos and links to them on YouTube. If you want to go and find hours of entertainment. Okay, not just hours, days, maybe 2 weeks.
You'll never be the same.
Of entertainment, of
your IQ will drop.
You've got Phil Phillips that looked like he put his suit jacket on right after he got done playing tennis and saying, "Hey, Buffy." And then you've got Weird Al Yankovic.
What's the one guy that he looks like he was beat up just before?
Are you talking about Mr. Potato Head?
Yeah.
Okay, this guy, I don't know if any of you have seen The Toxic Avenger, but, all right, this guy was made in a Christian lab. Okay, because his lips don't match his face, which don't match his eyes, which his glasses are ballistic. He looks like the poor guy was stuck in a microwave for just a few minutes, just long enough to loosen the skin.
And it's all like hanging from his face, his eyelids hanging over the top of his eye.
Seriously, Toxic Avenger.
Yeah, so you can go watch the Toxic Avenger on our website. Again,
yeah, so we're going to have links to all that.
We'll
go
link
there,
it all.
Watch him.
Broaden your horizons, people.
The worst is when I dig into the YouTube pages that stand up for the satanic panic. And
they stand up for him?
There are that, Betsy. And
Still?
there's stuff that are made this week.
Oh.
And I'll show you those later.
Let it go. In the words of Elsa, let it go.
Well, stop peddling bullshit.
Yeah. Like,
now, again, garbage. I don't want to say we're blaming the news for this. They're competing.
No, but they do. Listen, there are two ways to look at this. Guilt is given intention. So you have intention of eliciting this panic. Responsibility is what I would prefer to say. They have to own their responsibility for their garbage reporting, for their made-up statistics, for their leading the dialogue, and eliciting this type of panic. They have a responsibility to their viewerships, or to the people viewing them, to not report total garbage, made-up garbage. The worst in journalism.
They also have, and journalism's always done this. It's as far back as we can remember. The printing press, the first thing out of it was the Bible. The second thing was probably bullshit. That's just the way it's always been. People want to espouse their ideals out there, and they want to convert people because, everyone does. If you've got a thought, you always want to convert someone. But, the news were competing, and so then out of that is born a wonderful, an hour-and-a-half long show?
Let me tell you. It is the Geraldo Rivera Satanic Underground Exposed is what they call it. Like swanch music, and then they go right into like Motley Crue's You've Got the Looks That Kill is playing while a pentagram is flashing on the screen.
I know, and it's fun. I only hear that song on TV now when they show strip clubs.
Exactly. So it starts out with this like really heavy warning, parental discretion. If you have young viewers, they must leave the room. Leave now. Don't look back. Run from your homes. Kind of public service announcement. And then cut to Motley Crue. And he starts off in this interview where he's interviewing kids and pastors who have dealt with satanic rituals. And, of course, they're interviewing the kids so that you can only see the backs of their heads or whatever.
Yeah, and that shadowy thing.
And these kids are basically just repeating what questions he's asking. So Geraldo Rivera's like, so you saw them wearing robes? And then the little boy with the blonde hair that you can only see his ears poking out says, yeah, they wore robes. And it goes on to pastors, Christian pastors saying, beware, this is real, it's happening, it's coming to your neighborhood.
It was total evangelication of the news.
Yeah. And then he cuts to a couple different news stories from across the United States. He's trying to give it this broad depth of feel.
But he has no objective journalism while he's doing this. None at all.
No. He actually
Every time he talks to someone he perceives on the other side, it's accusatory. He never asks them an open question. It's an accusatory question.
Right.
Everything. Ozzy Osbourne, is it true that you worship the devil? It's never, so Ozzy, tell me about your music, or what are you doing here?
Right.
Well,
and then he actually asks Ozzy, in this one particular point in the program, he cuts to a live video feed of Ozzy, and he asks him, do you feel guilt? And Ozzy's like scratching his head, literally in the video, scratching his head saying, well, I just write music, and I would never want to incite someone to do something like this. And he's cut off by Geraldo Rivera, who then says, but tell me about your responsibility. Talk to me about your guilt in these kids committing these horrific crimes.
How dare you make kids dance and enjoy life for a minute?
Yeah, so...
And now, I wish you would have asked Ozzy today, because that would have been the best answer.
Oh. An hour and a half long for one response. But he cuts to these different parts of the nation, and he's like talking to this guy who says, yeah, we've had these incidences of grave robbing where the right little finger, I'm guessing the pinky, is taken. And Geraldo Rivera, it just is... right off the cuff saying...
that's for scrying and reading bones.
It could be. Geraldo Rivera, right out the door, says, well, that's part of Satanism. That's part of the ritual cultist.
Yeah. And
the guy's, like, looking at him. You can tell he's going to say something, and they cut to inverted crosses are being found all over the place. They've been found in... mausoleums and painted on substructures and just crazy stuff. So then he cuts to some of the prolific killers that we spoke of in one of our recent ones. He talks about the ones that we all know, Robert Ramirez, the Manson family.
We've got Son of Sam. Here's my opinion. This is just my opinion from my layman studies from the couch. Son of Sam brought up, he was first arrested. Now, there is some history there that he went after women with blonde hair. And also there's a story or a theory out there that when he joined the army, the first time he had sex was in Germany, I believe. It was with a woman with blonde hair, and he contracted an STD. That's just a theory.
That would turn anybody into a Satanist.
That's a theory that I've heard floated. But so he gets arrested, and then a little while later, after he's arrested, is when the dog comes up. That
talks to him.
The evil dog, Satan's dog,
sends messages through.
Yes, and then
Bowser, the Labrador Retriever next door.
A couple of years after this, another one comes up that he was a part of an occult, and then so I think, like when you see a kid on that show that's talking about he did this for Satan, I think that's just them seeking an excuse that the courts may be lenient on him with.
Absolutely.
That's my honest opinion. So but Geraldo runs with that. He runs with it.
And not only that, but he incites the ones, like I mentioned, that everybody knows. But he also brings up a couple other and just gives them little short credibility. He brings up Scott Waterhouse. Well, I looked up the trial of Scott Waterhouse, and I read it. Scott was a Satanist worshiper, but during trial, he actually says, I don't want you to give any credibility to my religion for what I've done. It wasn't for Satan. I'm going to be kicked out of my Satanist cult for doing what I've done.
Let's argue that maybe I'm broken, and that's why I joined Satan in the beginning.
Perhaps. And then he brings up Ricky Queso, who did a horrible crime, but then committed suicide in the jail. And the officials said that, this was a drug-related crime.
Yeah.
That Ricky Queso did this horrible crime because he was completely out of his mind on drugs. And here's what Geraldo says. Geraldo actually says, do you think maybe that you're just unable to make the connection? He's leading this police officer.
Yeah.
And the police officer says, no, what I'm telling you is we found nothing.
Professional.
Yes. The one who investigated it is unable to make the connection. But Geraldo Rivera, who's reporting on it, 10 years later, wasn't there, has totally made the connection. He's leading this sheriff, who then just basically says to him, no, we didn't find any connection. So cut back.
What year did the show put up?
I'm not sure what year. I think it was 84, it was 84, right after the McMartin accusations took place. So here's what Geraldo Rivera says when he cuts back to the studio. He actually says, the devil double-crossed you.
Yeah.
About this sheriff. He has an agenda, he's got a dialogue, and he's going to stick to it.
Was he just going after interviews? Do you think he was just trying to get glam, or do you think he truly believed that this was something that was going on?
I think he would have to believe in order to have this show be portrayed the way that it was, because he's not a great actor. And he literally sets up all these interviews.
Then again, this is Geraldo, because let's remember he had that show on where the
talk show.
The talk show, and then he opened what was that Chicago crime boss? He opened his vault.
Yeah.
It was empty.
Stop it. So the only people that he has on, other than Ozzy, who's just completely dumbstruck, he has Dr. Aquino, who's a colonel in the army. He's the leader of the Church of Set. And
it's an offshoot of the Church of Satan. He was a follower of LaVey.
LaVey, yeah.
And then he kind of started his own, and this was in the Presidio in San Francisco, I believe, the Presidio, or San Diego. And the Presidio's really was, a big intelligence army college.
And let me get to that, because there was some things hidden inside this Geraldo Rivera interview that I think I overlooked the first time, but not this time, Geraldo. I got your number. Anyway, Dr. Aquino comes right out, and Geraldo's like, so, what do you say about all of your followers? And he was like, listen, the people you've shown in these clips could not be Satanists. We wouldn't have them. This kind of deplorable humans, we don't want. We don't want these deplorable humans. And Xena comes out.
Well, they call them losers right off the bat.
Right off the bat.
Losers.
So Xena comes right out and she says, the Church of Satan is about rational self-interest. That's it. Not about killing other people. Yeah. It's about rational self-interest, indulging in oneself, not blood sacrifice, none of this garbage.
No.
So here's what Geraldo responds with.
Don't be confused into thinking that we're
Satanists,
defenders of the Church of Satan. But
no.
If you read any parts of the Satanic Bible, at least the one written, there might be other somethings out there, but the one written by LaVey, it never mentions sacrifice in there. It never mentions calling on Satan to make you be able to shoot fire out of your hands or get wings.
And don't get me wrong, Anton LaVey.
It's creepy. But it's just extreme libertarianism. That's all it is.
Yes. And he did it all wrong. He really did. If you're going to be an extreme libertarian, don't name your book The Church of Satan. What's wrong with you? You elicited this response, you idiot.
That is true. He ruined what could have possibly been a good message.
So then, in response to Dr. Aquino saying, listen, these guys couldn't be Satanists, Geraldo brings up the film The Exorcist.
Yeah.
He does.
So now we go into fiction to prove our point.
Yeah, it's complete fiction. And he's like, well, what about exorcism and things like that? Dr. Aquino is just like, listen, there's no basis for any of this. There's no proof for any of this.
None.
Cut away from Dr. Aquino. He's no longer supporting the agenda. Cut away.
The minute Dr. Aquino proves Geraldo...
What is he a doctor of anyway?
Oh, that's a good question. Yeah. I think he's a psychologist.
Great.
Psychologist, I think.
At any rate, this is one thing that I was super surprised about. So, they talk about exorcism. They cut to these voodoo rituals where they show an exorcism happening. Voodoo has nothing to do with Satanism, but for whatever reason, it supported Geraldo's view, so he showed it.
Well, it's funny. Voodoo is a mix. Well, Santeria and voodoo, they're both a mix of African gods and Christianity. It was kind of a push together of that. They came from the slave trade. You know, they would bring slaves over and force Christianity on them, but they still had memories of their religions that they practiced back home. So it was kind of a mix of those together, and that's why you'll see they have a saint that you can recognize, and then someone else you cannot, and so they mix those two
to bring them together. That's what religion's all about.
So Geraldo,
bringing people together.
Geraldo showed that for proof.
Yeah.
Amen.
He goes on, cuts back from this exorcism, and goes on to call Dr. Aquino to the carpet. This is one that I wasn't aware of. The Presidio Daycare Center, there were 60 young children, and here's the exact words of Geraldo Rivera. What about the devil cult you're connected to, Dr. Aquino? The devil cult that molested and abused 60 young children at the Presidio Daycare Center, at the Presidio Daycare Center at the base you were stationed at. What about that? I've read the affidavits. He's calling him out.
Yeah.
To which Dr. Aquino says, well, actually, no. I was never charged with those because, as it turns out, when this was all happening, I was in Washington, D.C., stationed in Washington, D.C., and Geraldo then goes on to just make a bunch of shit up, talking about, well, I read the affidavits, and these people, these young children that you did this to, they identified you.
And then they ask can you be a Satanist in the army?
Yeah, they go on to say, how do you say the Pledge of Allegiance under God?
Well, that wasn't added in until, 58, I think?
Yeah.
Under Eisenhower?
And then
so that
be a practicing Satanist.
Under God only showed up under Eisenhower, and that was a poke in the eye to the godless heathen communists. That's it.
So
it wasn't there prior to that.
Dr. Aquino, okay, his eyebrows drive me crazy. What is going on? It's like the Grinch eyebrows. They're all pointed. His haircut is...
He looks like he's off Star Trek.
He does.
He does. Like he's Spock's little cousin.
He does. But he keeps his cool. To which he says, well, Geraldo.
Well, Geraldo couldn't have questioned him for long because Geraldo would have been beaten down with logic.
And that's exactly what he said.
10 minutes into it.
He said, the affidavits you're speaking of were the ones that were created after these children spent time with the same psychiatrist that did the McMartin trial. Are you aware of what's going on with the McMartin trial? To which Geraldo then cuts to the group and starts to interview this group, Believe the Children group, which was, by the way, formed by the parents of the McMartin preschool kids.
Now,
so doing research for this, I found something very interesting.
Well, let's be clear. Those parents probably weren't doing malicious stuff. They probably believed that their children had been abused.
Listen, if my son comes in and says an alien stuck a probe up my butthole and he was wearing a robe and then he made me eat a cat, I'm going to let logic take over and say, well, let's talk about this.
What if your son just says they took pictures of me naked and touched me in the hoo-hoo?
Okay, that's different.
See, that's
but I think that's may have where it started.
That's the basis of it. Now, here in a minute, we're going to talk about a little something else that makes the McMartin stuff look pretty bland.
So he goes on to do this interview with the Believe the Children group, and this Believe the Children group, they wholeheartedly believe that not only is this happening with their children, but it's happening systemically.
Now that's where
across the United States.
That's where they go wrong. Yeah, they say it's going on everywhere, and there's a lot of things that lead up to this. I mean, we've got to talk about when Ronald Reagan ran for president. He made a big handshake with the fundamentalist Christians, which boosted them and gave them the will to really go out and evangelize. So they started making these videos. So they got kind of exploded onto the scene a little further. And I'm not blaming Reagan, and I'm not necessarily going to blame them, because they have a belief system that leads into it. And hopefully they have found their way out of radical beliefs and into a more
sustainable,
logical belief. If you're a religious person, that's great, but please be logical while you're evangelizing.
So this is something I'd never heard of, and born and raised in Utah, prolific LDS communities everywhere. I mean, we are the state for LDS communities.
This is the place.
This is the place. There was what they call the PACE memorandum that kind of popped up when I was doing research on the Believe the Children. It was written in 1990 by Glenn Pace, who was a general authority of the LDS Church, describing a committee of the church that complaints of 60 members, 60 people in the church that claimed they had been subjected to satanic ritual abuse by family members and other members of the church.
There's a couple of books written. I'll try to remember their names, but they claim that there's a book written by a girl that claims that. And now let's be clear. The stuff that went on with the FLDS, that is ritualistic abuse, where they're marrying young girls to older men, essentially forcing them to marry, forcing other young men out to deplete competition. That's not satanic ritual abuse, but that's ritual abuse. That's abuse for a religious view.
Yes. The state of Utah conducted a 30-month investigation after the PACE memorandum was leaked to the press in 1991. So they were like, okay, everybody knows we better do something about this. So in July of 1990, Pace, who at the time was a member of the presiding bishopric, fulfilled a request by the church Strengthening Church Members Committee by writing this memorandum. And the memorandum was leaked to the press the following year, 91. In his memo, he states that he met 60 victims who had recovered memories. That's your first. Okay, that's your first indication that perhaps you shouldn't give this much credence. Recovered memories.
Matching teeth to bite imprints.
Yeah.
What else is hokey forensic science?
So here's what they were saying happened. As 8-year-olds, they were baptized by blood into the satanic order, which is meant to cancel out their baptism into the church. 45, not 4, not 5, 45 witnesses claim to have witnessed or participated in human sacrifice.
What year was this?
91 people.
You were 8 in 9. I was 8 in 91.
I was not.
You were.
I wasn't baptized by blood.
Yeah. I mean,
what's wrong with me? Why wasn't I chosen?
They couldn't get enough blood out of here.
So they also said that they were killing babies and that the alleged perpetrators were young women leaders, bishops, a patriarch, a stake president. The crazy officially had made its way from San Francisco on the short bus to downtown Salt Lake. The crazy has arrived in 91.
They just wanted to
60 witnesses testify to some type of torture. 60 people. I couldn't even get 60 people to tell me that my cheeseburgers are good, let alone testify to torture and murder of babies.
Well, there's a part of torture, too. It happened 3 hours every Sunday.
Now it's only 2.
I know, they lowered it down.
They lowered it down.
Now,
again, why? Why when I was in church...
Couldn't they have done that?
Could they have not done that?
To all the Mormons, get yourself some of those guys that run the stockyards and sell the animals. We can shorten it. We can get church down to 45 minutes. We can do it. We can do it. You won't know what he's saying, but it's there.
So 91, it leaks to the public. Utah state legislation appropriates $250,000 for the Attorney General's office to investigate these allegations.
Now you have to be in Utah, especially then. It's still strong now, but the LDS Church carries a lot of clout in Utah. A lot of clout.
Yep.
And so, had this accusation been made by any other organization, you wouldn't have seen near the reaction.
Well, and here's the official statement following their investigation, is that they believe, the investigators, whoever they are, that perhaps these stem from the Apostle Richard G. Scott's sermon in General Conference, where he says, "I caution you not to participate in improper therapeutic practices that may cause you more harm than good. Detailed leading questions that probe your past unwittingly trigger thoughts that are more imagination or fantasy than reality. While likely few in number, I know of cases where such therapy has caused great injustice to the innocent and unwittingly." Now, to me, it sounds to me like he's saying, don't
get regressive therapy from some shady therapist that's going to plant stuff in your head.
Yeah, don't fall into this. At any rate, I digress. That one caught my face because I'd never heard of it. I lived here during that. Amazing. He goes on with the interview.
Geraldo does.
Past this PACE memorandum, he goes on with the interview with the McMartin parents, where the claim now is 1,200 kids. That is 40% of all children in that county were molested by satanic ritualistic people. 1,200. So the McMartin case didn't even have 200 on its roster.
How many people were on it? It had
it had 93 to begin with, and then another. And then
boiled down
to 2.
Well, and then 1.
Yeah.
So let's say it's 93 with 1,200 kids. That means that they would have to ritualistically. They had a busy year. So this Geraldo Rivera interview, documentary, propaganda goes on and on and on. He then goes on to talk about, which I find the most inflammatory. First of all, don't ever call mothers breeders. I don't care if they're breeding for Satan or not. He goes on to label these moms, and it says at the bottom, first of all, he plays a clip from Rosemary's Baby. Again, fiction. He plays this clip where she is impregnated by the devil and she screams into her hands, and the preacher's in the background trying to cast the devil out. Cut to, clearly, a mentally handicapped lady wearing dark sunglasses, like 10 times too big for her face, big puffy wig trying to conceal her identity. Was she a breeder?
She's a breeder. Says underneath her, breeder. I stopped it to read it twice. Breeder. He then goes on to say that these ladies, their entire job within these cults was to have babies that were to then be killed and skinned, or skinned to kill, and then...
This was on NBC, right?
Yeah.
This wasn't a hokey VHS you had to go buy. This wasn't Faces of Death that was passed amongst teenage boys.
Nope.
This was on primetime NBC.
Yeah. So these breeders, there's like 4 ladies. These breeders come on, and first of all, if you're killing and then doing whatever with your babies, let me tell you, he says, Dr. Aquino and Zena come on, and he's like, what do you think about these breeders? And she was like, first of all, there's no proof. Show me a lick of evidence that these breeders, A, had babies, and B, killed their babies. And this is what the one breeder says to Zena. Well, we consumed them after killing them so there wouldn't be proof. Okay, there are sheriffs and investigators and federal agents, all Bible-thumping, sitting in the audience with these breeders, and no one arrests these ladies.
Just like that.
Just like that.
Now, let's look at the other side. What if what everything said there is true?
Holy crap.
That's just crazy.
I'm moving to Mars. I'm leaving this planet.
It is something that would be of the worst nightmares.
Right. So that's basically how the show ends. He doesn't come out and say at the end, listen, these are just views, these are viewpoints. No. He comes out and condemns Satanists, practically looking at Dr. Aquino and his pointed eyebrows.
He makes up stuff. Now, Aquino is condemnable for his style.
Yes.
But there's no signs that Aquino ever did anything criminal.
No, and not only that, but he openly says, and at one point, he tells the breeders, he's like, you think we want your children?
Aquino says that.
Yeah, you are the scum of the earth. We don't want your kids. You think you're the best we can do, breeder lady? And I'm talking, okay, the American Society for Disability People should get involved because this lady is clearly disabled.
She should be institutionalized.
And Geraldo Rivera is interviewing her. She can't form sentences. At one point, she's being led on by Geraldo, and he's like, they tell you not to cry, and she's got her chin tucked down to her chest, and she says, I don't cry.
Yeah,
that's her full sentence. I don't cry. I eat my baby.
Ugh.
Garbage. It was all garbage. I tried to look these ladies up to see, like, where are they now? What are they doing? Nothing.
Probably fake name. Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if there was a lot of it played to me like a hyped up Maury Povich show.
Yeah.
Who is your Satanist?
You are not the Satanist.
Yeah. Okay.
The test results are in.
I'd like to get down to some crimes that were committed.
The real creepy of the creepy.
Now, a crime that was committed was what happened to McMartin School. They stole years of their lives. They stole their professions from them, and probably their character for the rest of their lives.
And let's be clear, the McMartin preschool, tip of the iceberg. If you look into it, during that same time, there were 7 other preschools across the nation.
Yep.
The McMartin was just the most talked about.
I want to talk about the Kellers. The Kellers, they ran a daycare in San Antonio, Texas.
Not San Francisco. God bless it.
And these are big, large towns, educated people. Anyway, so again, a 3-year-old who was having issues because her parents were divorcing went to a therapist and told the therapist of ritualistic abuse, including sexual abuse, animal and human sacrifice.
A 3-year-old doesn't have that vernacular. They don't have that vocabulary.
And traveled to Mexico with sex with Mexican soldiers.
Oh my God.
So I would bet the therapist led a lot of this instead of the 3-year-old just coming out with it. So the therapist ran with it, contacting not the police, but other parents with children in the same daycare.
Excellent. Good idea.
So go right to them. The examining doctor said the girl showed physical signs of abuse, said she had tears in her hymen. Law enforcement jumped on it, ran with it, dragged the children in for continued unusual questioning and interrogation, just like in McMartin, where they interrogated little kids for hours, and the kids eventually just say whatever you want during a 6-day trial. So the trial lasted 6 days here. The prosecutors used dubious witnesses, and they withheld evidence from the defense. It was proven later in a later trial that they did both those things. Well, the Kellers were found guilty and given 48 years each in prison.
What a crap.
Fran Keller went to a prison in Marlin, Texas, while Dan went to a prison in Amarillo, Texas. So, later on, let's jump ahead to 2013. So, this was in 91. They went to prison in 91. 2013.
I think that given the time frame, the local law enforcement knew about the McMartin preschool trial. given that it was
jumped on the bandwagon.
Yeah.
Well, but it's not just that. It's the in the head of the satanic panic. The kid, the 3-year-old has probably seen stuff on TV. The mom has preached about stuff, talked about stuff like that around the dinner table. The dad, the therapist obviously wants to get her piece of that shitty pie. Anyway, so these two people spend 22 years in jail, 21 years, almost 22 in jail. Later, a later investigation of the case revealed serious problems. There was no physical evidence of abuse. The doctor who said there was abuse said, I made a mistake.
Oh.
They get
Oops.
They get in the original trial, they have an expert, quotation marks, on satanic ritual abuse. What is an expert on satanic ritual abuse? Seriously. So, and then the jury was also found, the jury had been found to have violated rights to a fair trial. So, a whole bunch of things. So, anyway, June 20, 2017, the Travis County District Attorney Office announced that the case against the Kellers had been dismissed.
Oh, after how long?
They spent 21 years in jail.
Have you ever done anything for 21 years?
Breathe.
Yeah.
Ate steak. And so the prosecutor actually, announced they're innocent. And he talked about all this. And so Texas, you, in 2017, let them out of prison and gave them $3.4 million, which to me is not enough.
Not even close.
Not enough. They should honestly make the prosecutor be like their groundskeeper for the rest of his life.
And the therapist?
The therapist should be put in jail. That's my opinion. But so we've talked about, we've voiced our opinions before on how we think our justice system's broke and how we need to decide as a society, do we want to go for punishment or rehabilitation? But right here, this is ridiculous. The Kellers got thrown in prison. They had 21 years snatched from them for dog shit. And
not only that, but I'd imagine that the fact that you were put into prison with people who actually did bad things probably taints the rest of your life outside of prison.
Well, not just that, but I imagine where it comes to kids, I imagine they were subjected to some abuse while they were in prison.
It's a horrible thing. This whole satanic panic, it's affectionately called that, but if you dig into it, if you listen to all of these episodes, kind of back to back, the lead in and all of that, you can see that it's really a horrible thing that was perpetrated in the United States and other countries. We haven't even touched on other countries.
Oh yeah, it spread across the world. They had it in Africa.
How? The media. Stop it.
Well,
that's the only way it could spread.
Educated people lost their ever-loving mind.
I mean, we need to vet our news sources. And we need to realize, understand, wholly support the idea that these news sources are not done as public service announcements. They're making money. They're going to tell you the most inflammatory of inflammatory things because it gets viewers.
They want you to hang on for that hour-long show. They want you to be there for all hour of it so you catch all the commercials so that when the Rogaine has their commercial, you watch that. And when the bubblegum commercial comes on, you watch that. And when, the Gillette commercial comes on, you watch it. They want you to be there for all of that. So they get revenue for all of that.
Right. It's about money. They've got to pay their journalists. They've got to pay their, they've got to keep their lights on. They got to pay their microphone guys. They've got lots of bills to pay. So when you're listening to the news, I know history repeats itself. Like we've mentioned before, the Salem witch trials was similar in many ways to the Satanic Panic. Probably more, it was better than the Satanic Panic.
A lot of the Salem witch trial, when you look into it, was for money too. The prosecutor got the land of the people he prosecuted.
Right. So if history is going to continue to repeat itself, I think educated needs to be the motto. Learn the history. Understand the motives. The agenda is clear. today, as every other day, it's as clear now as it was during this satanic panic.
Yeah.
The agenda was to spread this really inflammatory, made up, not supported by evidence story as far and wide as they could, because it got them ratings. That was the agenda.
Well, and they also, it seems to me, all the news stations nowadays has a political view. And
you'll find politics all over the place. In this one.
I am burned out on politics. Yes, we don't like one side or the other. I hate both sides equally.
Non-discriminatory.
Neither side has ever done anything to improve my life. Anything. And that's why I don't try changing them there. One, they do nothing to affect my life except taxes.
Yeah.
They don't do anything to improve it. They don't, well, it's locals that, so work locally. Work on what touches your life. Fix what's around you. I want to talk about the West Memphis 3, too.
Oh, give it to me. Break it down.
Okay, so 1994. Well, it's 1993. 3 little boys, I believe they were in 5th grade. No, they were in 2nd grade. 3 little boys, 7-year-olds, 6, 7-year-olds, were found murdered in West Memphis, Arkansas. So the police went out looking for the murders, and they pinpointed on 3 teenage boys. I think it was a 17, 18, or 2 17s and 18-year-old.
Okay.
Now, they're in a small town in Arkansas, and these boys liked heavy metal music.
Dang.
Wasn't into the country and maybe a little rockabilly that's acceptable. They were outcasts.
Yeah.
And they were railroaded. They got drug into court. They got drug into court and just essentially railroaded. They didn't get a half-assed offense. They got called Satanists. Now, granted, Damien Eccles didn't help himself because he was flippant while he's being questioned. And in the court,
he was a teenage boy?
But he was a teenage boy. I know. I'm shocked. Well,
my teenage boys were never flippant.
After their super fast trial, he was sentenced to death.
Oh my hell!
So you got Damien. Well, let's talk about the little boys that were murdered. They
tragic.
Had Steve Edward Branch, Christopher Byers, and Michael Moore. 2nd grade. They were all best friends. They were found murdered in the woods.
And let me say, I understand the venom. I understand wanting to just find and hang whoever did this. I understand that.
For it. You do.
Yes.
But they just found somebody. They didn't find the person.
And that's the problem. That's the problem.
And then they just essentially snatch these boys up same day and pinpoint on them, so they don't investigate. So this is to the law enforcement.
Tunnel vision.
When you focus on one person, you're not investigating anymore. Okay? And I'm sure you thought that these teenagers did it, but the person who did it got away. And everyone believes they know who did it. They believe it was Steve Branch's stepfather, Terry Hobbs. His DNA was found in the bindings that the boys were tied up with. And I'm not giving a lot of gory details about this. This story breaks my heart. Little kids tortured and murdered, and then some teenagers' lives are ruined. They went to prison. So that
is there an update on that? Are they still in prison or?
No, they're out now. There's a documentary about it called Paradise Lost.
So they were vindicated in some sense. Did they get new trials? Did they just serve their sentences?
Well, okay, they gave. Let me try to remember the name of the plea they gave. They gave a plea that essentially says
the Wilford plea.
The Wilford plea. We're not
pleading guilty, but they say there's enough information.
There's enough evidence against us.
Yes.
So they got railroaded even on being let out, and it's horrible that these boys lost 20 years, these teenagers lost 20 years of their lives. Now, yes, I understand the little boys lost their whole lives.
Right.
And I agree that's horrible. But instead of finding justice, another group of boys lost 20 years of their lives. So coming out of jail at
Totally
around
different.
40 with no
Nothing.
skills, with no 20 years of life history to get them ahead in life. So if they prove to be functioning citizens now, I would be shocked.
Well, I think functioning is going to be within the confines of what they know.
And Terry Hobbs, a convicted criminal all by himself before this, got away.
Garbage.
Got away. Now I'm not saying he exactly did it, but from what I've read, there's a lot of evidence that he did. And when you don't find someone's DNA in knots on bindings, without there being a reason that showed up.
Yeah, you didn't find my DNA.
And this guy he was convicted of breaking into a house, of a neighbor lady who called on a domestic violence thing and threatening her and choking her. And then after the murders, because Stevie's mom found evidence, a pocket knife that Stevie would always carry on him in Hobbs's nightstand. So they split up. And then Terry went and lived with, I think, his sister and got in an argument with his brother-in-law and shot him. Didn't kill him, just shot him. So,
but this is all on the heels of...
They were called Satanists.
Yeah.
It's not just that it's on the hills. They were called Satanists. They were in court called Satanists, and that's why this happened.
Because of heavy metal.
It didn't happen because Terry maybe didn't like his stepson, and Terry's a fuckwit. And Terry Hobbs, if you listen to this, you're a fuckwit. Violence against children, I don't believe in spanking kids. Damaging them like that? No. So it's a horrible horror story, and Betsy, can I implore you that next week we do a story about something fun? Can we talk about aliens and Kegels?
Yeah, I think we should talk about aliens and Kegels.
I think we should talk about aliens and Kegels.
I think that we should seal this up nice and tight, this whole satanic panic, by just saying that everyone should question everything.
Use logic.
Use common sense, people. And if you don't have it, employ someone who does.
Yeah.
If you find yourself lacking common sense, find someone who does. And employ them to help you make sense of crazy things.
Show goodwill to everybody you come in contact with. And when you're communicating with someone, think of what they're doing as another sign of goodwill towards you. Think of it like that. Don't look at anyone as if they're doing something against you. Everyone has their own, they may be just trying to do something that benefits them. And don't look at something that benefits them as something that's adverse to you.
Right.
Let it be what it is. Show people kindness and empathy.
And journalists. Let me close this by saying, if you are an aspiring
just report
journalist,
the news.
Just report the frickin' news. Don't put your spin on it. You're supposed to be nonpartisan.
And
that's
you can
your job.
Partisan. You can say,
in my opinion,
the Democrats better than Republicans. I like this better than that. You can say that. That's fine. But don't go head hunting. Quit. Just
Stop it.
Hurting people.
Stop it.
I mean, that thing that happened with D.C. this last weekend, it's just horrible. Horrible. Kids got death threats.
Yeah. Again, political.
News. The news caused that.
Yeah. Journalism. Stop it.
And if you want to stay alive, honestly, all reports show that you guys are kind of going under. If you start being honest, that might turn around.
There you go.
All right, so closing words.
Closing words.
Be nice to each other. I want to mention one thing.
See?
In Arizona, there was a lady in a coma. I'm sure most people have heard about this. There was a lady in a coma. And
completely vulnerable
she's
victim.
Been in a coma for 10 years. And she was coma since she was a child. So she's in her 20s. And a couple weeks ago, she had a baby.
Humans.
Beautiful miracle of birth.
Yes.
But
immaculate conception, clearly.
It's horrible. Nathan Sutherland was her nurse. And, what he did was he raped her. Period. Point blank. He raped her and got her pregnant. And the baby's healthy. This is a horrible story. Now, the baby's healthy and beautiful. And I hope the baby finds nothing but love in their life. And I hope Nathan in prison finds love.
Much love, Nathan.
You
dirtbag.
That's such a violation.
Yes.
But the police got him, and I was happy that they got him. And this is one trial that I look forward to watching, and I hope
it will last about 12 seconds.
I hope.
What can you possibly say to defend that vile action?
I hope he gets the max. I hope. I don't know what the max for rape is.
It's going to be garbage.
But I hope he gets the max.
It's going to be 2 years, time served. By the time he gets to trial, he'll be out and free, and, mind you, probably still nursing.
Well, I want to see
justice system.
Get the max, and I want to see him have to pay the max in child support. I would like to see him, honestly, I don't want to see him get 20 years in jail, because then child support would be nothing. I'd like to see him get maybe 5 years in prison, have to stamp out some license plates. Everything he earns on the license plate goes to whoever raises this child.
I would like them to make an island somewhere, not for some billionaire to put a house on, but for us to drop the depravity of humanity onto, and then let natural selection just handle that. Rapists? Drop them off, just the most deplorable.
Rapists and child molesters.
Yes, and let them figure it out. Don't give them supplies. Don't nothing. Just let natural selection.
People are worried about wolves going extinct.
Yeah.
We could put wolves there.
Put a couple of wolves there.
Well, a couple of
packs.
Packs, yeah.
Yeah.
Anyways, but everyone, I want to leave on this note, because this has been, I just feel gross after this.
I need a shower.
Be kind to everyone. Show compassion and love. Remember, we're all people with needs and desires, so show compassion when someone expresses to you their needs and desires, and try to help each other. Even if it's just a little bit, by saying, good job, high five, or that's a great idea. Or if you have some advice, like someone says, hey, I want to do this. Yeah, that's awesome. If you do this, that might help you getting towards that. Show compassion and reach across the aisle, shake a hand.
Good hell.
Good hell, I'm tired of politicians. That's what we need an island for first.
Politicians.
Send them all there. And
I say we make it a reality TV show.
Dude, we could send them there and pretend like they're still our government. So they think they are. We'll set up a house that
they have no idea.
And here, we're just living in peace.
Let's dig a moat around D.C.
No more war, no more whatever.
Yeah, just dig a moat, cut off all communications. It could be like the Truman Show.
You know what's crazy?
It's a bubble, and they don't know they're in it.
Washington, D.C. was built on a swamp.
Well, anyway.
I'm not blaming the swamp. What I'm blaming is, how can you give people who want to rule people power over people and expect it to turn out well?
Yeah.
It's just, they do. But anyways, so be kind to everyone.
Thanks for joining on the couch.
Yes, thank you. Go to our website. Look it up. We'll have links to all sorts of fun if you want to have a good Saturday night of hugging yourself and laughing and then hugging yourself and crying. It's been a deep dive. And when next we come back, don't know what it'll be, but it's going to be
something
Bigfoot
lighter.
Or aliens or giant squid or maybe nuclear holocaust, anything easy.
Anything lighter, yeah.
All right, everyone, have a very good week.
And I put it on, and it said very clearly, number 9. And when I played it backwards and spun it backwards, it said, turn me on, dead man. Turn me on, dead man. Whew, I freaked.
Turn me on, dead man. 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 Turn me on, dead man.
Hey Jude.